And joined now by Kevin Amelotte from the Township of South Stormont. An item very much in the news lately has been the future of the Raisin River Heritage Centre, and we're going to discuss that right now. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
All right, so for those who aren't familiar, I'm sure many of us have driven by that site in St. Andrews, but for those who aren't familiar with the history of the building, maybe you can give us a brief background on that.
Yeah, sure. So for the viewers that aren't familiar, the facility is located on County Road 18, and it's right in the same property as the elementary school there in St. Andrews, and basically right across from the well-known church on the corner of 18 and Highway 138. So a bit of the history of the building. It was constructed in the early 1900s by the Catholic Church. It was used as a boarding school and a convent for nuns. And that was basically the use of the facility right up until about the mid 1970s. In the mid 1970s, at that point, the nuns had moved on, and the Catholic Church was deeming that facility for demolition at that time. And part of the history there was that in the mid 1970s was also the forming of the Cornwall Township Historical Society. And the society at that time the mandate was to save the building. So at that point, they reached out to former Cornwall Township, and they struck a partnership with Cornwall Township for future renovations, facility maintenance, that type of thing. And then the township would hold the actual ownership of the facility. So that went on for many, many years. And then most of the viewers would be more familiar that the facility was used for a library to the SD&G counties. As well as a museum part-time from the Historical Society in the last few years. And that's where it was leading up to about, like I said, 2015, 2016.
And it's important to note that you mentioned the township owns the building, and it literally owns the building and not much else, which is really a part of the factor in all this.
That's the unfortunate part when we're doing a lot of the research in the last few years is that, yeah, the township owns the facility and approximately 5 feet around the perimeter. We've also done some research and found out that the septic system for the facility is actually on the school board property as well. So you go back to an agreement that was struck in the 1970s when the partnership between a school board and the township was probably always thought to be something that would give access to the community at all times. But obviously in recent years, we know the restrictions and the safety concerns with with the schoolyards, the safety of the children. Strangers coming in and out of schoolyards. All the schools now have fencing around them. There's locked gates. There's protocol for going into the school before you access a schoolyard. So that's kind of the part of the struggle that we're having with some of the research we've done to try and do any kind of repairs or options for this facility was some of the restrictions we have around dealing with the school board property.
And when you discuss that research, this is a process that's been going on nigh on 5 years now, and all options were looked at with a lot of different variables, from selling the building as is to tearing it down and all these. So I'll let you elaborate a little bit more on this 5-year process of research that you've done at the township.
Sure. So I started with this project back in 2016, and we did the first thing we had done was legislated was an asbestos report. So we had looked at that report. I didn't only look at asbestos, but also some other substances such as lead paint and those type of things that we need to know about our facilities for a township. So what came out of that report was a little concerning. So when we received that report, it was around the same time that the library was closing in that facility. We took it one step further and did a building condition assessment in 2017. And that really opened our eyes to some of the problems we were having, especially some of the safety concerns with the exterior of the facility. And certainly knowing with the schoolyard and the children playing around that, the last thing we wanted to have was any injuries with children or staff from the school board or township staff around the facility. So that's when we started seeing putting up some of the safety fencing around the facility to make sure that any falling bricks or that type of stuff would be looked after. We did some renovations at that point to ensure public health and safety around the exterior of the facility. And from there, it escalated. So we looked at options, renovation options. We looked at demolition options. And we also looked at possibly selling the facility. So those have been investigated since 2016, 2017. Most recently, we've updated all of our estimates in 2020 for all 3 options. And those are recently presented to council at budget 2021. The first option for renovation we did explore was just a matter of doing the abatement of all the asbestos and everything else that's been disturbed in the facility. Looking at the structural components, getting back to the fire code, building code, making sure that we did everything we needed to do to get back in that facility. The cost just to get back in was about $900,000 was the estimated engineer's cost. We also had an architect come in and look at one of the options for renovation was to turn this into a regional archive center. So we had reached out to a lot of partners, other municipalities, school boards, conservation authorities, just see if we could strike a partnership that would help fund some of these things. And then we'd have some kind of regional approach for archive center. Unfortunately, there was just no need from other municipalities or other local agencies to do that. But we did explore the cost options of that to bring this facility up to an archive standards. And we were looking at about $1.7 million for construction of that. We also then looked at the demolition cost. We had a company come in and give us a rough cost, and we're looking at about $700,000 for demolition. Part of the demolition cost would be we need to remove the municipal heritage designation bylaw, and then move on from there, and then put it to RFP for a public bid. The third option that we really explored a lot too was possibly selling the land. Our first option was thinking, does the school board have a need for this property? It would make the most sense. It's within their, we're kind of landlocked in their property anyway. Do they have a need for, more facility? We met with them on several occasions. We've also received a formal letter from them. They're concerned about health and safety is the main thing. They don't have a need for the facility, and they requested that we actually have the facility removed. So that's part of the conversation, and a lot of the struggle we've had is working with that partnership with the school board. The schools in our community, especially the rural communities, is an important piece of the component for council. We've already lost a few schools in South Stormont over the last few years, and maintaining the ones we have is of high priority for council. So there's a few other issues. I mean, obviously I can't summarize 5 years of research into a 5-minute interview here, but certainly the research is available for all of the, for all the members of the public who want to look at it on our website. And it really does detail year by year what was done, and all the council reports and any kind of the building condition reports are there as well.
And it's never an easy decision, especially with a piece of heritage and things like that. But it certainly sounds like the appetite is certainly going to be to remove that heritage status, and that the building may not long survive. I know there's a little bit of controversy in the community with that, but maybe we could just finish off with what the future is looking like. And at the end of the day, if this does happen, that there's a solid reason behind it.
Yeah, this wasn't taken lightly. I can tell you it was a very tough decision with council, not just this council, but the previous council. So this is, like I said, ongoing for 4 or 5 years now. The next step right now, we did present the options to council for a final review at the January 13th meeting. At that meeting, they've given the approval to our clerk to move forward with the repeal of the heritage bylaw from 1978. With a repeal of a bylaw that has a heritage status, we have to go through a public appeal process. So we did make a public notice, I believe, last week. And members of the public do have an opportunity to file a formal appeal by February 19th. If that's the case, then we'll go through that process. It becomes then a 30-day process, and it moves on from there for someone from Heritage Trust Ontario to have a look at it. It's certainly, they're going to look at the research that the municipality has done as well. And I encourage people to there is the ones that want to save the facility. I've talked to many of them in the last couple of weeks, and I can appreciate as well. I've just asked them to, look at the research that's been done. We've looked at a lot of different options from staff and council's perspective. And I just hope the members of the public take the time to do the research that we've done, look through it, understand it, and then see the stance of the school board as well, and letter that they've provided us, which we've posted on the website for people to view as well. And that kind of paints a picture of what forced council into this decision. And again, it wasn't an easy decision for staff or council, and I know they struggled with it. And again, it's been 3-4 years they've been back and forth on this. So.
Absolutely, and as you alluded to, with so many factors at play, it's just there's probably no easy answer, and certainly nothing that will please 100% of the people. But at the end of the day, the partnership with the school board and the safety of children seems to be tantamount. And of course, as you alluded to as well, there's so much information on the website for anybody that wants to go read the report. I've certainly read it, and it's certainly illuminating for anyone who's interested in following this issue more. So, Kevin, I want to thank you for all your hard work on this, as well as coming on the show to enlighten our viewers about it.
Thank you.